Alright guys, we're into round 3. Ignore the banner as I forgot to update. It is in fact round 3 of tonight's 4-round standard event from the Lost Legion Games and Comics in South Charleston, West Virginia. Already into the action, we've got James Ferris on Mono Red Devotion landing a turn 2 Ash Zealot, and his opponent, Stream Regular Nick Reid, who's playing the same blue-white control deck that he piloted to a top 8 finish last week. So a classic battle between aggro and control. Of course, James's deck, as we see a Nykthos come down, is designed to abuse the devotion mechanic to basically flood the board with threats from his hand. I see a follow-up Frostburn word. That's going weird. That's going to get syncopated. Looks like Nick forgot about the Nykthos there. I think that was just a mistake there. Nick is regretting that, but that is that's why you play the games. So misstep early from Nick. Let's see if it comes back to cost him. So with 4 mana symbols on board, James is going to be able to profit off of that Nykthos. He's going to serve in and pump his Frostburn weird there. So choosing not to do anything, adding to his board, going to make Nick beat him with what... going to make Nick to respond to what's on board before he keeps adding, so as to not play into Supreme Verdict or similar fare. So James serves in again with the same attack, pumping the Frostburn to its maximum. And Nick's down to 4, so very close to burn range here. Even if he untaps and verdicts here, he's dead to a 5th land and a Stormbreath Dragon, dead to a couple Lightning Strikes, or a couple Magma Sprays, Magma Jets I should say. So the verdict does clear the board out. Let's see what James's follow-up is. Another Frostburn weird, which isn't quite lethal here, but is very close. Shout out in the chat to our friend Michael watching from Florida. Haven't seen him in a while, so good to see you back watching. And to answer the question about the... no, I guess the Frostburn is lethal. You can pump for 4 there, my mistake. But I can't fix the camera bounce during the middle of the event. There's just too many moving parts to try and do that now. So there's Magus. It's going to be a 4-mana zap, but it does represent a lethal attack next turn, and it does get Nick into lightning strike range. So there's his 5th land. We're going to need some answer to the 4-2, or Nick is just going to... So we're just going to draw 2 with a Divination. Looks like a last gasp attempt to find an Azorius Charm or some other answer here. I guess that's what we're representing, is Charm or Cyclonic Rift. We'll see if he can muster up a little bit better of a draw, falling behind very early against the red deck in the game 1. So both players keeping their opening 7. Nick leading off with an island. Nice John Avon Zyndagar Full Art Island. James following up with just a mountain. I don't think the Mono Red Devotion decks actually have a 1-drop, so this is not entirely unreasonable. So we're going to see a Weird or a Zealot here. It is in fact a Zealot. The best turn 2 the deck can have. Not only does it boost Devotion, but also provides a considerable clock here. And then Nick with the Ratchet Bomb. Going to tick that up to 2, I imagine. See if James correctly does not feed into a bomb activation for 2. Nick main decks at least 1 Ratchet Bomb. We saw it last week. Not sure if any more come in out of the sideboard, but it is a good answer to some of these aggressive decks. Attack puts Nick down to 16. We'll see what James follows up with here. Well, there's a Nykthos. The most important card in his deck, theoretically. And there is the Ratchet Bomb ticked up to 2. Nick on 3 basic islands here, so no white mana, and he doesn't have a 4th land, so in a bit of a spot here. So he can't activate the bomb in response to a second creature should he cast it. But Nick isn't going to take the damage. He's just going to conserve his life total. And nuke the Zealot before damage is dealt. Let's see what James's follow-up is here. There's a Burning Tree Emissary into another Emissary into a Nykthos activation would be pretty good. But Essence Scatter is going to take out the Burning Tree Emissary, preventing any chaining shenanigans. And then James doesn't have a follow-up, as the colorless mana generated by Nykthos not necessarily any good at this stage in the game. So Nick misses on his 4th land for the 2nd consecutive turn. Also on no white mana. I know he's got Celestial Flare in his hand, which is more than dead in this situation. We're going to see a Chanter's Phoenix here. Nope, a Hammer of Perforos is going to meet a Dissolve. The Scry is super important here as Nick's able to push another non-land card to the bottom. And he draws his 4th island, so we can play a Jace Architect. Excuse me, Jace Architect here. And we go ahead and draw some cards, I would imagine. Looking for a white Mana Source. And there isn't one in there. We see Fiendslayer Paladin, Lavinia the 10th, and an Azorius Charm. I imagine Nick's just going to take whatever pile has 2 in it. No, he's going to take Lavinia. Lavinia's pretty brutal in this matchup. Not as good in this matchup out of the board as he is against the attack with 2 power 1-drops mono red deck, but still a good spot to be in. So there's a Stormbreath Dragon. We're going to attack. We're just going to serve in and attack Nick there. Interesting choice, but I think based on what James has in his hand, there's a lot of lines of play which could make that correct. Nick is just going to go ahead and bin his Jace, looking for a white mana source, and still does not find it. So, Sweeper, Sphinx's Revelation, and Aetherling. Probably the best 3 unique cards in Nick's deck. None of them very good at this spot. So Nick choosing the Sphinx's Revelation. We'll see if he has a follow-up Jace. No, he does not. So on a 3-turn clock from this dragon alone, and James with the grip full of cards. Just going to serve in for 4. There's an argument to be made about not adding anything to the board unless it's going to change the clock. And I guess by adding the Boros Reckoner, he could have gone monstrous with the dragon and then killed Nick next turn. But an Essence Scatter eats the Reckoner. And Nick dead on board in 2 turns here. So let's see if he can muster anything up. Down to 4 off an attack. Follow up with the Fanatic of Magus. But a Dissolve shoves another card to the bottom, so still not a white mana source on top. And what is the card on top? Looks like a Divination. Divination to draw 2 cards. Looking for a Cyclonic Rift and another land, as Azorius Charm is not any good here. So he shocks himself down to 2. Dead to a variety of cards out of James' deck. Basically, every card in James' deck is lethal at this point. Just going to cast the Fanatic, which is, and look at the business in Nick's hand. But you got to draw the lands to cast your spells. That's a part of Magic. Nick kept a 3-land hand and did not see a white mana source until the very last turn, despite multiple scries. And a game that went on fairly long. Did have a lot of answers in terms of counter magic, but did not have the white mana he needed to draw that game out any longer.